rough draft of the podcast world. This is the Newbie Writers Podcast with your hosts, Damian Boat and Catherine Bramkamp.
Hey, this is episode 193, and it is this week. I double-checked before we started.
Good.
Unlike last week, we just made it up as we went along. Anyway.
Which is fine. I like making things up as we go along.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but it can backfire. You know.
Yes, that's true.
You think, oh, I'll
get
be
it
right.
wrong. I could forget who you are. There's so many things.
My word. Imagine that. If you forgot who I was after 4 years.
No.
Oh.
I don't think that'll happen.
Be like, oh, half my face is feeling numb too. God, I don't know. Anyway, when it comes to things like improv, that it can backfire a bit where you think, oh, I've got all this planned out, and then as you go to say something, it's just blank.
Yeah.
Every week.
Well, and sometimes, as we know, sometimes you have everything all planned out and you freeze and nothing comes out at all. So you can overplan and get too worked up about something and not be able to produce, or you can not prepare, and when you say up in front of a whole group of people, I got nothing, you really don't have anything.
Have you ever had that though, where you've gone in to present? Because we were talking a bit about this, what was it, last week? Where you go to do a workshop or something. Have you ever got up in front of a group of people and just gone, hi?
I haven't really done that. Because I was doing I did a couple of talks this week, and they went well. And I just, by having I bring notes, and so I type everything up, what I'm going to say, kind of make it big enough to read. That's another trick, is to increase your font before you print to like 16 points, and then then you can read it from the podium. And then I ignore the notes completely. So by just having them, then I know I can stay on track. And so that's my system. And then I can refer to them. And if I totally get off track, I can just say, hey, I'm going to check my notes. I want to make sure I give you all the information that you need. So
how did you start yours? When you stood up there, everyone was ready to go, staring at you.
Well, I try to come up with a good story, or with with an opening that I have read, so that I can start talking. So I can start just talking about what I do. But I do that so often that I just you gauge the audience, you establish rapport, and then you go on from there.
Have you ever started your presentation with, so there's this idiot in Australia?
You come in at about the middle. If I find things are kind of sagging a little bit, I'll bring in you. That's when you come in.
I'm the ring in. Anyway.
Yes.
We don't.
Yes. You're the spice.
It's a spice trade. It's not June. Well, we don't have a ring in today, but we have Lisa Acerbo on. I think I pronounced that right. Romance and horror author. Welcome to the Newbie Writers Show.
Thank you. It's so great of you to have me here.
It's all right. So you're a teacher as well. Have you had the brain freeze as you're about to present something to a class?
I do. I have had those moments where I want to say something and it's deep and intellectual, and I forget and nothing comes out.
Yeah.
Oh.
And the deeper it is, the harder it is to drag back up to the light.
Right. And you just have to play it off. Like you meant to say something and you just make it up as you go.
Yeah.
And because you're a high school teacher as well, aren't you?
I am.
Right.
Well,
so have you walked into a classroom of high school students and gone, my word, haven't you people heard of deodorant?
For the most part, my students are well-groomed. I think they're much more interested in impressing each other than impressing me with their work. So once in a while, you do get a case like that, and you ask the nurse to seek that person out. But they definitely like to look attractive for each other.
I must be going into the wrong schools.
Clearly.
Oh, we've had some doozies where we've gone in, kids are been kicked out and right, open all the windows. This is horrendous. Like, melt the paint off the walls. But apparently, and I fed this back to like my clients, going, "Can you talk to the teacher in that room? Because far out, they can't." Well, they said it's not really politically correct to take someone aside and say you stink.
Yeah,
That's
true. Like I said, that's why they give it to the nurse, right?
Right. It's a delicate thing to discuss.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with obnoxious students?
I think you have to just make it humorous. Show them that you don't care and that, turn it back on them. So if they're obnoxious to you, you can show them, you can dish it out just as much and have fun. And then they usually simmer down most of the time.
I've noticed that there can be a little bit of a shock factor because in my role, I'm not a teacher, I'm a tradesman. And we've had a few kids be a bit smart mouth. So that's all right. I'll just be smart mouth back. Or I just won't say anything.
Just what a teacher can't do. So you're in a better position as far as that goes.
Yeah, or I just won't say anything until just as I'm leaving. Because I try and see how far they can hep it up before. Because they always try and push the boundaries, even if the teacher's in the room. They think, how far can we push this? And the last one, I just went, all right, everyone, see you later. Hope you do some work because it sure as shit doesn't look like you're doing it right now. Just shut the door. Left them all over there with their mouths open.
I find they're fine in the classroom. I actually had to take them on a after-school trip up to the haunted graveyard. It's like a big event at Halloween. And, they were awful. The bus ride was an hour and a half of pure torture.
Oh, wow. Wow. And so were they just obnoxious and all of that?
Oh, they were obnoxious. They were throwing things. They were saying inappropriate things with the girls. They were saying, it was just, I don't know. I will never do it again.
Did you do that sort of responsible adult thing? Stand up and go, if you guys don't settle down, we're turning this bus around and we're not going to this thing.
Well, they know you can't do that because they've paid the money for the trip. And I mean, you just know they have you. You're trapped with them.
That's bad.
Now, you're big onto the horror thing and the scaring thing. When you went to this place, did you then scare the crap out of them just to get them back a little bit?
That'd be cool.
That is a really good thought. No, I think the exhibit did that well enough, and there were some rides that, scared them. So, believe me, I can get my revenge when I get back to school and go talk to the administrators. They have to feed me then.
Oh, but as if you wouldn't be sitting there plotting, going, right, I am going to get especially a couple of them.
Oh, I have a couple in class. Believe me, I was plotting.
Well, I do it because I work for another college as well, and I tell the students straight up, it's like, if you annoy me, it will affect your grade. Just saying.
Oh, Jesus.
And and I do. It's like, if you're giving it your best shot, that matters as well. But if you're up there and you're being super obnoxious, I will take that under consideration. I can't do anything terribly dramatic, but it can make a difference between a B- and a B or a C- and a C. I have no problem with that at all, because sometimes I think you're right. I think you're kind of stuck and you've got these privileged children and it's like, no, you guys are not making me happy. Let's try something else here.
Yes, Mrs. Robertson.
So let's talk about Lisa's book, because that's what we're really here for.
That's right. Well,
that's right.
It's about it's horror romance, isn't it?
This one is more thriller romance, but there are elements of horror in it.
So what's so appealing about the horror genre? I like B-grade horror, where you can sort of sit and laugh at it. I don't really like that, gore and scare stuff.
I think I love horror because, pretty much I'm scared. Like, I'm a wimp. And so when I can write about it, or I can read about it, or I can watch it, I know in reality I'm safe. So I find it fascinating.
But isn't that's a bit of like self-harm, really? If you're going to sit in the middle of the night, you're watching a horror film and then you're lying awake for the next 8 hours. Can't sleep.
So that would be me. How do you how do you manifest the horror? How do you manage how do you manage the horror then?
In the book?
Yeah, because I know there's levels of horror, is there certain horror styles that you can tell us about?
Well, for me, I like things that are based somewhat on reality, things that could possibly happen.
Okay.
So like in the first book, it was the zombie apocalypse, and based on, a disease. So that is something, as a fan of The Walking Dead and, some of the other shows of that genre, iZombie, it's like, it could possibly happen. And so I'm intrigued with like the future. And if it did happen, how it would play out. And then my new book is based on actually a creepy character who lived in the 1800s. So it's like that idea of like, why was he roaming around Connecticut and New York? What did he want? Like, was he evil? Was he good?
Was it like Jack the Ripper type thing?
It is kind of, he was called the Old Leatherman, and he wore this huge like 60-pound suit of leather and didn't talk to people and lived in caves. But luckily, as far as we know, he never hurt anyone actually.
Right, but then he doesn't fall in love with someone, does he?
No, he does not fall in love with anyone.
Right. Just checking. Yeah.
Dream horror.
Twilight. Anyway. Oh, I don't know. So then, what would be your favorite sort of horror film? Come on.
Oh, so many. 28 Days.
Oh, okay. See, mine's Hellraiser. Because
really?
Yeah. Because think about it. He's got pins in his head.
I know. He's creepy.
It's funny to look at. You'd sort of apply that to...
That's funny.
Well, no, but you apply that to sort of real world things. It's like, there's a guy with pins in his head. That's a bit weird. But then he probably would blend in these days walking down the street. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say just like, extreme piercings.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, anyway.
Exactly. So we've got the No Trouble at All, which is your Leatherman, thing. Tell us, you have a Apocalipstick. Is that how you pronounce it?
That's correct, and that's the zombie vampire horror story.
Okay.
And they put makeup on each other. What a cool concept. Knock, knock. Hey, zombie calling. And then, there's a zombie there with a bag. He's like, oh, fix your foundation.
That's right.
There's zombies and there's vampires, and they don't interact, but there's also humans. And so the lipstick becomes a symbol after all the craziness that goes on and all the killing and the horror of actually trying to start being human again and finding a life.
Huh.
So how do you, with the zombie thing, what's the backstory for your zombies? And how do they become zombies without it being too stereotypical?
Again, the zombies and vampires come about the same way. It's part of pretty much the end of the world. And in my book, it's disease, and it slowly infects people. And most of the people die off and come back to life as zombies. But a few humans survive, and a few kind of this new race called the Others, which they're pretty much vampires minus a couple of the traditional traits. The vampires and the humans have to work together to defeat the zombies, or at least hold them at bay.
Right.
Okay.
So the humans don't sleep much.
No one sleeps much.
I don't know, but isn't that a bit of a challenge though? Because we are sort of a bit inundated with, the zombies and that sort of thing. How do you keep it a little bit fresh without people going, oh, it's just another one of these?
I'm hoping the characters are fresh. I'm hoping they're a different take on the traditional characters. But I have to admit it. I'm a young adult junkie. I read what my high school students read. So, I'm submerged in Divergent, and now I'm reading Winter and all those books. So I just love it. I just want to write about it.
Oh, cool. Do you use your students for beta readers?
I do. Sometimes I do, and sometimes other teachers have them read the book. And sometimes I get my best material from them when they don't know about it, like listening. Great stuff. Really good stuff.
So you just appropriate comments in the hallways and in the classrooms, like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. Just a minute, I'm going to write this down. I've had that thought.
Desk. Good. Grab my pen, put it in my notebook.
Yeah. Because I do that with torture. Our tortured sentences often come from my students because, they're trying to wrestle with whatever and they just come up with some really crazy syntax. So I'm so grateful to them for giving me material. It's kind of like my kids. Just thank you for giving me all this material.
It's so true. I just, two students were having a conversation about the meaning of life, and I was like, this is great. And I couldn't wait for them to leave. How horrible is that? So
but you had to write it down.
I just wonder, though, if that would ever backfire. So you start to write something, you include something that one of your students has said, and then you hand it out to them, and then they come and go, Miss, that sounds like something Kevin would say. You're like, oh, funny that.
I worry about that. I'm doing the National Novel Writing Month, and I plugging away, and I was writing something, and a little bit of it came from what a student said, and I was like, I'm like, how much do I have to change this? Because, if they read this in a couple years, will they remember that conversation?
Probably not.
Yeah, and it's like, oh my God, that's from me. Well, I guess you could just say, thanks. You could acknowledge them in the acknowledgments. Thank you for, Bobby, for talking about the meaning of life really loudly. No, wrote it down here, Bobby. Thanks. Shout out.
Just cover it and say, you're not the only moronic teenager I've come across before.
My theory is they can't remember to bring their homework in. They usually can't remember their lunch. So I don't know if they'll remember a conversation a year or two later. I'm banking on that.
No, you probably can.
So is the goal then, eventually to be just a full-time author? Or do you think you'll still teach right up until those end of days and you just say, well, I was also writing on the side too?
I would love to be a full-time author, but I don't know if I'd ever fully give up teaching. I love being a high school teacher, but I think I'd also like to be doing writing workshops at the college level and actually working with people who want to write, because many of my students either don't like writing or fear it or aren't really interested in it.
How do you inspire them to do it, though?
Yeah.
We've done some writing workshops, and we've done some wonderful, personal pieces. Students are always good at writing about themselves. So those, some of those, I have to say, were amazing. They do a nice job.
Catherine, have you ever had that? Be bounced, got them to,
with the students who don't like to write.
Yeah,
I love those students. This was my very favorite. I think I've said it on the air before, but this is back at another university, and I had a gentleman who was a butcher for a local grocery store chain. He was let's say 35, 37 years old, and he said to me, well, I just use one there, THERE, and I just use that for all of the theirs because that's just easier.
Oh, my God.
And I just looked at him and I thought, I love you. That is the most pragmatic thing I've ever heard. So that I consider a challenge. And I've had people in English classes, in literature classes, who walk in, sit down, and look at me and they say, well, here we are. But I got to tell you, I really hate to read.
Right.
And I looked at him and said, I got to tell you, it's going to be a long quarter for you.
Jeez. I don't know. I I like to correct people on the internet, which is really bad.
That's bad.
There's one group that I guess they've got a lot of teenagers on there and they just spell things horrendously. And I just put a little asterisk and put the correct spelling for the word that they got wrong. It's really passive aggressive. And someone posted up this morning about, correcting people in this group is blah, and there was this long diatribe and it was so poorly written, but they didn't enable comments. I'm like, well, at least I'm getting there. They've recognized that they spell badly, that they don't want to have a comment left even on this one now. I don't know. It's not that hard, really, is it? Why? Here we go, because you're both teachers. Why are so many teenagers spelling crap? Like, just on the net. I don't know. Is it laziness? They don't care. There becomes just one there for everything.
Personally,
yeah, you go. Tell us.
I definitely think technology has played a role in it. I think that, spell check and autocorrect have made it easier for people to make mistakes and not worry about them. And then I know at the high school level, we don't teach grammar anymore.
Why not?
Where it's supposed to be holistically included in the learning. So it's supposed to be something students pick up as they're reading, as they're writing.
Yeah, but
what do you think about that?
I like grammar.
Yeah.
So we've had a number. We have Arlene Miller, the Grammar Diva. We've had Grammar Girl. We've definitely had shows devoted to grammar. Do you sneak it in for the students? I mean, because I can understand not spending an hour, diagramming sentences because you'd lose the whole ball game. But they do need some help. You got to be. There are things that are not intuitive about the English language that you need. Someone's got to tell you.
Like a full stop.
Yeah, full stop.
I definitely, when I'm correcting their papers, I mark every grammar error. And then in the next paper, I expect to see an improvement.
Uh-huh.
So it's individualized that way, but you don't always see the improvement. You don't always get the papers to begin with. So
making it even more difficult to make this all work out.
Right.
You must get a load of what we call tortured sentences. I know Catherine's we got this backlog over 4 years of just students submitted train wrecks, I think is the best way to explain them.
That's why they're lovely and I love them to death, but yes.
You must wear out the red markers so badly. No.
You get everything in student papers. You get everything from wonderful and that you wish you could steal to sentences you can't even understand. I love the students who decide the semicolon is their friend, and it is everywhere.
Do you sit, like, take them aside or call them up and go, what are you doing? Would you just tick it, mark it, go, try again?
No, I do writing conferences with my students, not on every paper, but I definitely try at least, once a marking period to sit down and, address their needs, individually, writing, speaking, whatever we're doing in class.
So what's the worst mistake you've seen?
Oh, that's tough. Catherine, you take that first. I have to think.
Besides there as an all-purpose word?
Yeah.
I would say that I always get not upset, but when I get papers where there's just no continuity at all within the sentence structure, and the poor student didn't understand what I was trying to convey. And sometimes I think that that's the teacher's fault if they don't get it. Maybe I didn't explain well enough. But I would definitely say it's the ones that are like way off track, like they take Jonathan Swift seriously, or they go off. They just fly off on the left field. It's entertaining, but it is a little frustrating.
Right. And so they signed off their paper with, and that's why we don't have flying cars. You know,
Right, almost. And and that's why I didn't get my paper in on time. Actually, I tell them, please don't save your creative writing just for the excuse as to why you couldn't turn in your paper. Use that skill in your paper.
Yeah, well, see, there's another focus thing. Lisa, if you had, what's the most creative excuse for not getting something in on time?
I just had one recently. We had a paper due, and the student said he had his eyes dilated. So he could work on the paper and could not hand it in, even though we, been working on it in class and on previous days.
My God, I had my eyes dilated. Did you just look at him and go, really? That's all you could come up with? Oh my God.
It's kind of cute. Although once I acquired a dog, I totally understood the dog ate my homework thing.
Really? But that doesn't work for you if you're the professor going, guys, look, it's going to be a bit disjointed today because the dog ate my notes for this class.
I almost want to say that. The dog ate the syllabus. I have no idea what we're doing today. So how are you feeling about school?
God, bring the dog to work day. Anyway.
Sometimes I go into class, it's like, oh, I don't know where we're going to go.
All right, Lisa, I got a question because I'm not a big romance fan at all. Why include that and not just have just a kick-ass horror or futuristic concept? How come it's got to be tainted with the romance?
That's a great question. I have to tell you, my first book, I would have been really happy to keep the romance out of. I find it the first book, I found it so hard to write the romance, but I thought it would make it more marketable.
Okay. Which
is why I put it in. I'm definitely much more secure with my romantic scenes now, and I actually like it. It adds another layer to the characters, but my first horror book with the zombies, I would have been more than happy to leave it out.
So how did you try and weave that in then? Was it a case of you were just zooming along with your story and then all of a sudden, right, well, let's just have those two kiss. Let's just do that.
Pretty much. It was like, well, where would it work? And how long, they're fighting zombies. Like, where would they find time to build a romance? And who would want it? You're probably disgusting and like dirty, but they find a safe haven towards the end of the book. And I was like, this is it. This is where they're going to, find some romance.
Yeah. I mean, did you get a bit of feedback on that? So it didn't sound plonked in. I'm thinking of Catherine's. Was it the first one where you had that romantic scene? And I was like, no, not there. That doesn't work.
And then we decided that it didn't work, and so she stopped it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I found that it just took me out of the story as I was reading it. I was just going along, and then I'm like, oh, really? Why have we got this in here? Nothing like just a random sex scene, but whatever.
Well, yeah, and I think that it has to be integral. I mean, you raise an interesting point. Like anything, the sex or relationship advancement, whatever you're doing, needs to be part of the plot. And I've had better success if I'm writing my characters through and they're running around or doing whatever, and if they if they have a lip lock by accident or by design because it's natural, then I go for it. And if it's not natural, it doesn't happen. So I try not to force in that sex scene. Once I think you give that up, it might be a little easier. What do you think, Lisa? Do you think if you were able to not put in the sex scene, you would have been happier with your zombie adventure?
I do. I probably would have been, but I also, one of my underlying themes was the idea that you need to stay human. Like, you need to be able to forge those connections with other people. If you lose your humanity, is life worth living? So I felt there needed to be something. There needed to be some types of connections between characters, whether it was romantic or friendship. So that made it a little easier, but I definitely think I could have left out the explicit scenes. Like, I could have hinted at it without having written it as fully.
Yeah. Huh.
Have you ever written something down and you sort of showed it to your husband and he's just looked at you and gone, "You're sleeping in another room tonight. That's just way out there, you weirdo."
No, but I have edited a couple books, and one I had to send back because it was like supposedly an erotic romance, and I showed my husband a few passages, and we were both like, we're never touching each other again.
No.
It was bad.
Ew, right?
Yeah, there's graphic and then there's just wrong.
And there's yucky.
Yeah,
It was yucky. That's the perfect word for it.
yeah. I write yuckita. It's yucky.
Like yucky erotica.
But
But I think that there is definitely skill to this. So the writers who can create those and churn them out, frankly, the romantic novels with some erotica or flat out erotica books, the ones who can really do it I consider them geniuses, because it's not a skill I have. I'm much better at sending everybody off to the bedroom and closing the door, and it's like, and later the next morning, that's all I'm good for. So, the ones who can really do it well, should be complimented and honored. And you're right, if you can't do it well, you may want to reconsider and just leave it alone, because you don't want to end up being the person who wrote the yucky or romantic interlude in your book.
well,
Absolutely agree.
I've just destroyed my internet history by typing in yucky erotica. And
Now they're going to be after you. You know that.
well, I don't know, but Kendall Jenner's come up. I'm not clicking on that. I do feel sorry for someone who has a Simon & Schuster book. It's a kid's book called Lily and the Yucky Cookies. So that's a little thing in the middle of a bunch of filth. Anyway, I'm going to close that. That's just wrong.
That's probably good.
But at least it's not a genre. That's why I typed it in. That was my fear. Did you get a whole stack of books?
There was an actual genre of yucky books. That's pretty funny.
If anyone does have any, feel free to send me titles. I refuse to read them, but it would be worth a laugh, because I wonder what you'd call them. Because, you've got a lot of romance. There's there's that you're not a horse thing. But
Yeah.
how do you, at what level do you go above and beyond just the I'm a thaler thing?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sure it exists. I'm sure it exists under some other title. Like, I don't know, extreme romance.
Extreme. I think that they're very much those. We can have a conversation about that goes on and on and on.
Yes, which we won't. Anyway.
Which we won't, exactly.
So, Lisa, you're published through the same publisher that Catherine's with. Is that right?
My first book was Apocalipstick. I'm with Destiny Whispers Publishing now.
Okay. So why the change? Was it just the other, was it Eternal Press wasn't up for the next one, or you decided to just have a change?
I don't know if I can tell that story.
Yes, you can, because Eternal Press and Damnation Press were just bought, so you're fine.
Yeah, you can say their shit. It's fine.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I mean, the editing just was really awful, but they had the second book, and they've had it for close to 2 years now. And I don't know what's happening with it. Now that it's sold, that's another piece. I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So communication. How have you found it, Catherine? Have you found their communication to be a bit woeful?
I had, because I could actually meet with, when it was Eternal Press and Damnation Press, I could actually meet with Kim because we were in the same town. So that was very helpful. I kind of knew where she lived. That's also very helpful.
You stalked her.
Yeah, exactly. But I have found that the new owners, Caliburn Press, the new publisher, is trying to be as responsive as he can, considering how much he's got on his plate. And it's just, I'm waiting. I'm going ahead and waiting to see what they'll do with the 2 Future Girl books, see what they do with the 3rd one. I just signed the contract for that one 2 days ago. And I'm interested in seeing. This isn't an easy gig. It's not an easy system. So I'm willing to kind of go along and say, okay, let's, show us what you have and let's see how that looks. So Lisa, you're with another publisher. How has that experience then been for you in contrast?
It's been wonderful. Like, it has been so different than my experience. With Apocalypstick, the editing's great. The editor even made changes after it had gone to proofs. Last minute changes. She's been very supportive. Doing a lot of publicity for me, which
good.
Right, which I don't think Eternal Press did a lot of. So I love it. Yeah. I'm happy.
Yeah. But then, when you changed, when you're looking around for another one, did that make the decision, or did it make it a bit harder because you had that sort of tainted experience with a previous publisher? What I'm trying to say is that if you found one, did you become more critical of what they had to offer?
I guess I must be a really slow learner because I've had 3 publishers, and my second publisher didn't work out that well either. And I love them, but they don't do print books for every book they sign. And that was never made clear. So my second book only came out as an ebook, which was very sad because it's a young adult novel and my school library wanted to buy 60 copies of it.
Oh, man.
So I'm a slow learner. I found a publisher I like on the 3rd try. That's not too bad, I guess.
That's not bad.
So if they don't offer it in paperback, can you go somewhere else? Can you cancel the contract with them and say, well, you've only got the ebook rights, but I'm going to take this elsewhere?
Not until the contract. I don't think so. Not until the contract is up, because there's nothing specifically saying they will do a print book.
Right.
So it's just you're bad for not being able to notice it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then you could challenge them, couldn't you? You could say, well, you're not specifically saying you'll do a print book, so I'm going elsewhere that will do it. You can retain the ebook rights.
I guess I could. I've talked to people a couple times, and there's been the promise of a print book. It's just when it's coming, I'm not sure.
So what is the time frame for contracts? You and Catherine can both answer this. I don't have a book contract with anyone, so is it just 2 years, forever? What? Yeah.
Oh, no. So what's your current contract with your current book?
Apocalypstick was 5 years, and my current one is 3 years.
Well, that's not too bad. I mean, that time can fly.
No, that's not bad. The Eternal Press books were like 5 years. And this new with Caliburn Press, it's 18 months.
Huh.
Oh, that's nice.
Is that
very nice? It's very nice. So it's like, okay, so we can, we'll make a run at this, and then if it doesn't work, it's much, I think it's an auto renewal, but it's a much shorter time, which is nicer than really locking yourself in, and of course, and them locking themselves in too. So I think that's legitimate to say, okay, well, if it doesn't work for us or if it doesn't work for you, we can both say, let's cut it out and start over again.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That 5 years, that seems to be quite a.
It's a long time.
It's a long time to commit to for both sides. So if your book is rubbish and it doesn't do very well, then they're going to have to hold that weight, that paperweight, for 5 years.
Yep.
Whereas 18 months can go by pretty quick. By the time it's all sorted out, they could say, well, it's not working, your contract's done. And then you can wander off and find someone else that's willing to take your crap book. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, very much. I think that's very much the case.
Right.
So what are you working on now, Lisa? What are you working on for NaNoWriMore?
Right now, I'm working on another kind of horror influence story about a local cemetery in Easton, Connecticut has a ghost called the White Lady, and she's been seen, through many, many times. Cars run through her and she evaporates into mist. She's been seen walking through the graves. So I have to research her, but I have a kind of horror story planned around her.
Cool.
Have you heard of someone linked it to me, I'm trying to find it now, of the person that's buried in a car park? Is it New Jersey? There's a cinema complex on there now. And
they're buried in a car park and they're wandering around.
No,
hunting it, or they're just buried in a car park.
No, it's in real life. I can't find it now.
Is it a ghost tale? Like the person who is buried is a ghost who has risen?
But I think it freaks people out. Someone had a property in the 1800s. Mary Ellis. Here we go. Final parking place of Mary Ellis. So they had a large property or whatever, and it was custom back in the 1700s, 1790s by the looks. They got buried on the property. But as obviously time has gone on, that property got sold. It got turned into a row of shops, and they kept the gravestones there.
Oh.
But now it's become a cinema complex with a massive car park. Right in the middle is this raised mound with a headstone on it and a fence around it.
Oh, that's funny.
It's bizarre. Like, I was reading this up going, I can't believe no one at some point, even during the 1900s and on, just put in a claim to reinter them somewhere else. And it looks bizarre.
Wow. Well, I think that ever since we've all seen Poltergeist, we're a little concerned about, stomping around on other people's gravesites, right?
Yes.
Well, right. I'll send you the link.
Sorry, when we were looking at houses, we actually visited one that had a gravestone in the basement.
Oh, man.
And I could not live there.
No.
Yeah, but come on, think of the inspiration for that. But how did they allow that?
I don't know, but it was just too scary, just even to walk down there.
Was it an actual gravesite? Was it someone's headstone that they just put in the basement?
It was an old headstone, but they didn't know exactly where the body had been buried. It had been, like the story you told, it had been buried on the property, but they didn't know where exactly.
That is so. That's so funny because in California, real estate law it requires you to disclose if someone died in the house, not even buried, just died, because Asian clients consider any dying in the house bad luck, and they won't purchase the house if somebody died in it. So I think that's fascinating. On the East Coast is like, oh yeah, not only did they die in the house, we have them in the backyard.
Yeah. Put them in the wall.
That is, we'll just brick them in. It's great, very Poe-like. But that's like crazy. So I would be out of there myself.
Have you had that, Catherine? Because you were a real estate agent at one point. Did you have to say to clients as they came, you're all dolled up and you've got your little folder. You're like, welcome. Just before you enter, the previous one actually died in the bedroom.
There is a box you get to check. So, and it's listed in the multiple listing service, so that it's something that is standard issue.
Oh, how is that worded?
I don't know. I can't remember how it was worded. Well, yeah, you would think, because I wrote all of those murder mysteries where people were dead in the houses, and you had to disclose it.
Because it would have to be written in a way that's sort of non-offensive or doesn't really stand out too much. So, you tick it. Would it have?
Well, I suppose I could look it up, but it's like any deaths in the house or whatever, and national causes counts. So if you see a little old lady who died in her bed, there are clients who would say, no, sorry, that's a deal breaker.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd understand if you had a little subsection to that and it was another tick box of multiple homicide, Yeah,
that's something you really don't want.
What's the crime rate like around here?
Violent death, that's, definitely, that's where you get the hauntings.
I don't know. Do you believe in ghosts, Lisa?
I do. My daughter actually saw her grandfather in our house, and she was older. She was about 12, but she still to this day like has to turn on every light when she walks up the stairs into her bedroom, because we have a little room that she saw him in, and she hates to walk through that room still. And so because of her, I do believe in ghosts, because I don't think she's making it up, and she's so absolutely sure she saw her grandfather.
Oh, wow.
Well, there you go. Do you think you'll move into doing more ghost style things instead of zombies and vampires?
I do. I think that was my run at the zombie vampires. So now I'm moving into, I love the quirky old legends that are actually based on something real, like a real person.
Uh-huh.
So do you have to research that a fair bit then? So at least you you add some sort of weight to it. So if you think, well, hang on, this I'm inspired by a story of, I don't know, Mary Ellis being buried in a car park. Would you seek out all that information, or do you try and just be a bit more sort of imaginative with it?
I think it's a combination of both. I definitely take some poetic license, but for the Leatherman, I had actually, when I was really young, right out of college, I had worked at a National Audubon Society where his cave was. So I've known about him for a long time, and I've gone to see his cave and his gravestone, and I've read, a couple books about him, and obviously done internet research. So I've taken a lot of poetic license, but I feel like I did my, due diligence and researched him.
So how do you go about the writing? Do you just do it after work or before work? How does it work for you?
I like to do writing in the morning, but as a high school teacher, that means getting up super early, like 4:45, and I don't like that.
Doesn't seem worth it.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. Now, do you hit that goal all the time, or are there days where it's like, I am just not getting up?
There are plenty of days that I'm writing after school just because I could not get up.
Yeah.
So I deal with teachers. I like to offend them by saying, but don't you finish at 3:30? I love saying that to some teachers when I'm at a school, and they get so angry. And it's like, well, no, we'll have you know, we do, full day. It's like, where are you off to? I'm going home now. Like, but it's 3:30. Well,
they correct papers at home.
Yeah, right.
And the children wear you out. I mean, it's, they're tough, but I grade papers, or like this week we had our faculty meeting after school, then I had a parent meeting after school, then I have yearbook deadline. So most people don't leave right after school.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell that to the mass exodus at 3:15 at every school we've been to, and then you've got the cleaner at 4 o'clock going, "I'm kicking you out. You got the key?" I'm like, no, real people work till 5:30.
So today, 2:45.
Oh my god. Anyway, so then if you're at home marking, and I'm not going to let Catherine answer this because I know her answer, but obviously you sit down with a glass of wine. Does the marking become a bit more loose and a bit more aggro as you have more and more wine?
It really depends on the day. If I'm in a good mood, I might give them an A- if they deserve to be plus. If I'm not in a good mood, who knows what they'll get. I'll be off for every grammar mistake.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Exactly.
I think Catherine would have to stop after about 3 papers, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, because then I wouldn't be able to see anymore.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely sloshed. Anyway, that would be my hope, is if I submitted something, and be like, oh, hopefully I get into the third group of piles, so that way I'll pass, because she'd be too drunk to realise.
How much wine are we talking about?
Enough.
Yeah. You hear that question all the time about, how much alcohol do you drink? They say like 1 glass a day or whatever, and I usually just put enough to cope.
Enough for what we do, and and I'm with the enough group.
Yeah, check out that link I sent you. I'll try and post it up. I did post it on Google. It's quite an interesting read. Now, Lisa, we've got some little things we can go on with, like word of the week and tortured sentences. Feel free to stick around for that. But in case you need to jump off, is there anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Just my new editor at Destiny Whispers Publishing. This book definitely would not have happened without her. So, Leslie, I appreciate you very much.
Oh, there you go. Where can people find your books and everything about you out on the internet?
I have a blog, Apocalypstick, the book at .wordpress.com, and I'm on Facebook. And you can also get it, of course, on Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
Oh, there you go. All right. So, Catherine.
Yes.
What should we do next?
Well, since we're in the school mode, we can do the tortured sentence.
Oh, let's do that.
Next time, don't put the wrong emphasis on the right syllable. Tortured sentences.
So that was a mixture of staff room conversations that I put together from Lisa's school and Catherine's.
That's what the parents say after we have a parent-teacher conference.
Oh, they're awkward, aren't they? Yeah. My boy's crazy smart, so I feel awkward sitting there when the teacher's going, "Your kid's fabulous." You know, straight A's. I think he's getting a bit bored because we're not challenging him enough, all that sort of stuff. And I sit there going, what would it be like for those parents where the teacher's sitting there going, "No, your child is a problem in every level"? Like, oh, yeah. What a hard conversation.
I had both. I had one child who was not academically inclined and fell asleep in his English classes, and then I had the other child who was off the charts. And so I would go back and forth. I was the only person available for back to school night. So I'd go up into one class and I'd get, "Oh, you're Thomas's mother." And then I would go into another class and they're like, "Oh, you're Michael's mother." Like, oh, crap.
Does high intelligence run throughout your family? You're like, hang on, I was just in the other room.
Not tonight, and not according to my oldest child's teacher. It is very odd. So I can actually speak to that. It's really odd they just look at, the teachers would look at me with my older child as like, "We don't understand. He's falling asleep. He's not doing this. He's not doing that." And I'm like, well, just slam a garbage can on the desk and wake him up and move on.
We'll just say, look, he was the practice one. The second one, however. Anyway. Right.
He was the practice one. So this is to acknowledge one of our current Republican candidates who, like Herodotus, thought the pyramids at Giza were built to store grain. It's a little old information. That's like 25 to 3,000 years old. And the guy who was leading Herodotus around was screwing with him anyway. So here's a tortured sentence from a student. "The Egyptians built the pyramids in the shape of a huge triangular cube. The pyramids are a range of mountains between France and Spain."
Oh, you can have so much fun with this. You could put like a globe of the world down and spin it and go, "Put your finger on there." Don't. Yeah, that's where the pyramids are. You idiot.
I think the triangular cube is really an interesting geometry question.
Really
and you make one of those.
But the pyramids are a range of mountains between France and Spain.
And the pyramids are a range of mountains between France and Spain.
We're going to
go hike the pyramids. We'll be back.
Where did that get copied from?
That is from sorry, totally spaced out. A professor who collects them up and posts them on the internet, and so I pulled that one off.
But someone must have been writing something and then went, "Oh, that's right. That's not."
Yeah, it's history according to high school students.
Wow. Anyway, let's do a prompt. I don't know, Lisa, you still there? Do you do a prompt at all to get your writing juices flowing?
I do. We do.
Ah, how do you come up with them for your students, or do you seek them out for yourself?
Sometimes I seek them out for myself. I usually steal them from the internet for my students.
Well, feel free to steal ours. Look, Catherine, you come up with these normally, don't you? You just make them up.
Yeah, I created them myself.
So
original.
Yeah,
for what
good.
That's worth.
This prompt is: what would you say to a new writer? You, not me. What advice would you give to your youngest self? Could that be a book or a blog article? Oh, there you go. What advice
would you tell yourself. What would you go back and say, oh, you didn't have to be that uptight about it. It'll all work out, or, it'll get better, or you should have written more. What kind of information or advice would you give?
To my younger self, I'd probably go up to me and say, carry on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Carry on as intended. I don't know. Yeah, that reeks of a bit of, if you've got a regret, you can go back to your younger self and try and correct it.
Yeah.
But I don't believe in regrets, because I sort of do. Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I don't know, it's hard to explain.
You can do that. I mean, there's and people build entire novels around that. They build entire, movies about that. I mean, Hot Tub Time Machine is completely about regrets.
See, I haven't watched that on the grounds that the title sounds rubbish, so it can't be a good film.
You know what? And it's a terrible movie, and yet at the same time, it's kind of cute.
Oh, right. Nah, not into it. I don't know. Lisa, what would you say to yourself if you could go back and bump into yourself?
I think I tell myself not to take everything so seriously.
Nice.
That's a good start. I can't take anything seriously. Which, there you go. That could be a problem. Maybe the advice was maybe you should take some things seriously.
or point out one thing. That one you should have taken seriously.
Be like, whatever, dude. Yeah. Your haircut, you look like an idiot. I don't know. Word of the week. Let's do a word. So, this came from a word a day from Anu Garg. This is more of a... What's a synonym for the word synonym? That's not a rhetorical question. There are, in fact, synonyms for the word synonym. Oh, there you go. So this week we'll see synonyms for the more direct Anglo-Saxon acts. Sternitate. Sternitate? Ooh. Okay. Got like different meanings here. Sternitate means to sneeze. Who the hell would use that?
Sterninate. Maybe it sounds like it.
No.
Media where it sounds like the actual action.
He's sternitated. That broke the spell. Is the usage. That's bullshit. That is a word that someone's found in a dictionary, a medical dictionary, and gone, I'm going to put that into my book.
Well, you want weird stuff, and I am trying to provide them.
Earliest documented use, 1745. Well, it can stay back there. That can be, you can go back to your younger self and say, look, here are some words you should never use. And then you get back to your normal time, and all the scientists that sent you back said, so how did it go? It's like, it's all sorted out. He's not going to use silly words like sternitate. And they go, hang on, we just spent $1 billion sending you back in time, and you told him not to say a certain word? Like, yeah.
Sounds like Future Girls. We only got one shot. We're just going to give you something really simple.
Yeah, so step into the closet, shut the door.
Yeah.
I'm not giving anything away. All right. That'll do it for this week, won't it?
Yeah, that'll do it this week.
Is there anyone you want to say hi to, Catherine?
No, I'm pretty good. I had a good week. I've got some new clients. They're all writing, and so just a shout out to my clients who are working as hard as they can.
Oh, there you go. I got no one to say hi to. I'm just driving around all week.
Yeah, sounds like it.
I don't know. Driving's, I don't know. Some people love driving. Me, I just sort of, I don't know. It angers me. Anyway.
Yeah, well, then you need to stay off the roads if you're angry.
No. I just need to stay locked in the car.
Ah, okay. Got it.
Just everything. Anyway, that'll do it. Who have we got on next week?
Next week we have Meg Clayton, who wrote The Race to Paris.
Did she win?
They sort of won. It's about women. The book is about the women journalists who wanted to or tried to get to Paris for the liberation in 1944.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll make sure I stock up on bras to burn. And
there you go.
We'll have a chat to her. So until next week, we'll see you then.
See you then.
Your book starts here on the Newbie Writers Podcast.